Hello. So, listen, I know the quality is bad. Okay? My camera doesn't want to film over 15 minutes and I'm guessing I'm going to be talking for more than that. And then also I want to be able to actually see myself, so the front camera, because I am really bad at angling stuff. Because I'll angle it and I'll be like, that's great, and then I will look at it later and I've chopped off half my head. Listen, I know the quality's not as good, but like, stick with me, okay? It's been a while since I've done a book haul of any kind, and that is because I typically read through Kindle Unlimited and now my library card, so I tend to read digital books. Now, that being said, I have accumulated a good amount of books. There's a lot of books here. So, I've had some of these are Christmas, some of these are I've got them with my own money. Some of them I went to, what is that place called? Half Price Books, and got. Other ones, my parents, because I bugged them enough, they let me get it. So there's some of that. And then recently I went to Barnes & Noble for my birthday. Well, not recently, it's been like 2 months since then. So I got like 9 books there, which is crazy, by the way. That is crazy. So I've read like half of the books I've gotten from Barnes & Noble. And then I also got more books after that, even though I still have unread books from when I went to Barnes & Noble. I have a lot of books that I've accumulated since I think 2 years since I last did my other update. Now, I will say I don't think I have included like every single book that I've gotten from there, because I've kind of forgotten whether or not I got it before or after that book haul. So, we're just gonna show you the ones that we currently have, okay? So, we're going to start off with our Christmas ones. That is the Live Tradership Trilogy by Miss Robin Hobb. This is in the Realm of Elderlings book series. I read the Assassin's Apprentice, which is Farseer Trilogy, and then this one comes next within that universe, and I'm basically only reading this to get to the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. That is basically like 3 more trilogies away from me being able to read. So this consists of Ship of Magic, Mad Ship, Ship of Destiny, and we are following this family in Bingtown who are live ship traders, who basically imagine those ships that have like people or like mermaids carved into the front of them. Now imagine a family, when they're dying, they spill their blood on it, and that awakens and quickens the ship so that the ship can talk and basically move throughout the water quicker and all this stuff. Now, this family is against slavery, but it has become a new thing within the town that they're living in, because it's the satrap and multiple different traders who are moving there and want to make more money, and so this family doesn't want to do that. And so we're kind of dealing with also the family dynamic of, you have Althea, who is the daughter of, I've forgotten his name, but he basically, because he didn't have any sons, took her onto the ship, and so she wanted the ship, but she's a female, so she can't have it. And so everything kind of devolves from there. This is a very good political, this is hurting my hand to hold, this is a very good political and very like high fantasy, but in a very understandable way, which is very nice, because I think Robin Hobb writes very, not simplistic, but very understandable and easy to get into worlds, but it doesn't feel like she's dumbing it down for you. I feel like she's just very clear and concise with what she's writing, and she also very good characters and very good relationship building within that. And so far I've liked all of her writing. I will say the Farseer trilogy is still like the best out of this. Now, I have yet to start Ship of Destiny, because these, as you can probably tell from their size, are like pocketbook size, or they're mass market paperbacks. And if I can show you the text in these, yeah, I don't want to read that kind of thing. So I have been listening to it on audiobook, but I don't really have that many activities to do while listening to an audiobook, so I've been very slow with that. I just recently finished the second book, and I think I got these for Christmas in 2023. That is the Live Tradership trilogy by Robin Hobb. I always struggle to say the name for no reason at all. We're gonna put those there if you can even see them. So the next book that I got during that Christmas was, I can pick it up, jeez Louise, Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. Now, I've read a good amount of Cassandra Clare books, and this is I think her first dive into adult fantasy, and I really want to read The Ragpicker King, which is the second book in this. I don't know how many books this series will be, but basically the Swordcatcher is this dude from an orphanage who looks a lot like the prince, and he will imitate him in what could be dangerous situations, like giving a speech to a certain group of people or going out in public and stuff, because he looks just like him, and he will basically take on all of the danger. And then you're following a girl who is a healer, but her family and her people are very ostracized and are living in the walls, like contained walls within this city, and are very shunned, and they have to wear certain colors of clothes, and they're not allowed to do a lot of things, and it very much draws from actual history. And I think it's good, but it kind of, for me, it still felt very YA, like her other writings. It still felt very much like that, because it definitely does have, like, it is definitely ticked up a notch, but it definitely still feels like YA writing. And that can be fun, especially because I think Cassandra Clare is like one of the very few YA writers that I actually really like. And so it's very fun, but it is definitely like not my favorite concept, not my favorite execution or kind of love story, and it all is very happenstance, which, I mean, a lot of books are, but this very much does give, like, why is all of this happening? But it is a very political and complicated universe, but it definitely does focus more on the relationships rather than the political aspect within it, and it has very fantastical elements as well that I am kind of forgetting because it's been a minute since I've read this. But like I said, I do want to pick up the second book because this is an interesting world and I do want to see where it goes, but I don't know. I'm very iffy on this book and this series possibly in general. So yeah, but this is a really cool cover. It has like actual reflective, and then even the back's cool and stuff. So the next books, I don't know some of the order that I've gotten these, because some of these are recent and some of these are like, I've had them for a very long time now, or at least what feels like it to. Listen, if it's been 6 months, it feels like a very long time that I've had something. Okay, my object permanence is horrible, so if I see something, I'm like, oh yeah, I've had that for a really long time. So I think I got these when I went to Half Price Books, it's been a minute, and I got the second book in the Expanse series, which is like a sci-fi opera. I really love the characters within this because you have a main group of 4 people in this crew who are somehow always getting involved in this stuff, and then you also have some other reoccurring characters, but it's funny, so it has sarcasm, and it is also very political because you're dealing with a very futuristic world where there's planets that have space stations on them or around them that have their own governments or are ruled over by certain governments, and space travel, all this stuff. It's very fun and very cool. And I should mention that I have the third book as well. I've read both of these by now, and I really want to pick up the fourth book because I really do love these characters so much. I don't know, I just like they're very good at writing the characters in these, and for you to actually start caring about them and interweaving them in a way that they actually start connecting in the end, because somehow it always goes back to our crew that we have. And there's also, this has one of my favorite things, which is like infection type of stuff, which I know like nowadays people are like, I don't want to read about that, but it's always been really fun to me. And it's like a very weird disease, it's sentient, like it's very cool, and it's a very fun plot, and all of that, and I've had a very fun time reading this. I really want to get the fourth book because this is so good. So, anyways, I think I also got this from Half Price Books. Actually, I think I know that I got it from there, and that is the last book in the Good Girls Guide to Murders trilogy, and that is As Good as Dead. I also read the little novella Killjoy that came before this, and I just have to say I think this is just a really well-rounded trilogy. I think they kind of delve into what Pip has experienced and what that actually does to a person, and it not just being like, well, they solved this murder and they saw this really traumatic thing, but like they're okay. Like the fact that she goes so hard into like the psyche and kind of watching this character break down and go through so much. And I was like, I remember reading this and being like, we're wrapping this up really soon, and then the ending of this, boy oh boy, was it quite shocking. It goes from like amateur detective to like full blown like, oh, this is a mass killer. Like it's very crazy, but it does follow Pip, an amateur detective, trying to figure out what happened to Ravi's brother and 5 years ago, because to her it doesn't match up, and it's like her senior capstone in high school, and she forms like a relationship with Ravi that's also really good. I think she does a very good job with her characters in this and gives them, they feel very real, and they're also like written as teenagers would be, and I don't know, it's just very good. Now this trilogy does talk about sexual assault, so I would be very cautious towards that. It is also gruesome, even though it is YA. It is very gruesome and goes into gory detail because we are investigating a murder mystery and kind of all of the aspects that happened, and it's a lot, but it's very fun. And if you're looking for a good murder mystery, I think that this trilogy is really good. If you're also looking for really good characters, I think this is it. I haven't read any other of her books like Five Survive, or I forget, it's something with Rachel disappearing. I don't know. Maybe I'll just stick to this trilogy and just like not, but Five Survive sounds very interesting to me, so we'll have to see how what I do. This is gonna be, yep, okay, it's sliding. We're fine. It's fine, guys. Okay, so the next book that I think I'm doing these in order, is you'll see him a lot in this in this haul, and that is Mr. Brandon Sanderson. This is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archives, and if you can see that, you can tell I very much love these books. Okay, I have annotated all of these, and I love this world so much, and it makes me terrified because I have yet to read the fifth book, and I've heard people say that it's not that good, and I'm terrified by what that means. But this book it made me cry, okay? I'm so attached to so many of these characters, and this book made me cry, okay? You give me like each is over 1,000 pages, and you expect me not to be like really connected to these characters? You're stupid, okay? Kaladin is my sweet baby boy, and he never gets a break, okay? And I don't know whether I should be terrified for the fifth book for him, because Brandon Sanderson loves to inflict pain, okay? So, I will say, I think the second book, Words of Radiance, is still my favorite out of the entire books that we're reading. And I will say, I think much like Robin Hobb, he does a very good way of creating worlds that his worlds aren't overly complex, but they deal with a lot of very unique powers and systems. But I would say that this one is a lot more political and action heavy than some of the other books. It doesn't wait until the end of the book to give you action, which I know is a lot of people's main critique of the first Mistborn book, which is that is not until the end of the book that you get that. Now, listen, I think book 2 does that, but I still adore these books no matter what, and Brandon Sanderson always knows how to end a book. Does it always leave me satisfied? Not always, but I adore this series. This is the first series that I have ever actually read over 1,000 pages for. Okay, and if that doesn't tell you dedication and how much I freaking love these characters, I don't know what does. I can't wait to get my grubby little hands on the 5th book, and the only reason I haven't yet is because it's an over 1,000-page book that is in hardcover. And I don't know about you, but I don't feel like holding a hardcover for a 1,000-page book. Not that I can hold this for very long, okay? My wrist is already hurting from it. You're going to see more from him in this haul because I have an obsession. So I think I'm going to put him here because this pile is already getting a little too big. And then the next thing that I read that I actually have a video on, fun fact, is The Raven Cycle by Miss Maggie Stiefvater, I think is how you pronounce her name. And it goes The Raven Boys, The Dream Thieves, Blue Lily Blue, The Raven King. Throughout my entire time reading books, since I picked it up again when I was 13, I have heard so much about this series. I've heard how emotionally damaging it is. I've heard how good and just like that it's gonna break you basically, and I was like sitting there for so long and I was like, I don't know. And then I have Pango and I saw that somebody was selling this for $15, all 4 books, and it came in the actual box, by the way. Overall, I did really like this series. It is so heart-wrenching. It deals with so much stuff. It deals with abuse and family death and queer relationships and also just like teen relationships, and it's also not something that I typically like, which is not only is it YA, but it is also more of a urban fantasy, which those two things I usually don't like, but this is just so good, and she is so good at writing characters. She's so good at making you care so much about them. I think the magical stuff is interesting and it is unique, but I don't know. I think the characters are just more, they carry more of the plot and they're the more heavy-hitting things. So like if you're looking to get into like a very cool world, this does have it, but it's not, I don't think it's the main focus of it, I wouldn't say. So the next couple of books, so you might see sci-fi, fantasy. I have been trying to step out of my comfort zone, and so far it has actually been working for me. I know, shocker, but I have a couple of really good books here, and the first one is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This is the first ever book that I've read by Sally Rooney, and I know some people are going to say that I should not have started with this book, but I'm going to be very honest with you. This is not at all what I expected, okay? The only reason I picked this up is because of Carrie Can Read, the way she was hyping this book up. And now, we have had disagreements on books in the past, okay? She loved Five Broken Blades, and she said she loved it more than my sweet baby Six of Crows. She's wrong about that, just saying. I'll take your perspective in, but it doesn't mean you're right, okay? But I heard about this, and I was like, oh, it's like two brothers in the chess world and they're like competing against each other. That's not what this is. One of them does chess. The other one has a very complicated relationship with two different people. There's the brother who plays chess also has a very complicated relationship, but this basically follows two brothers after their father has died and kind of a complicated family dynamic and their kind of complicated relationship, and it's very good, I will say that. Now, Sally Rooney's writing style, which I didn't know before I went into this, is that she does not use quotations. She will follow up something and be like, this, he said, or she said. She will say that, but you will not know whether or not it's a thought or somebody said it unless she either explicitly states it or by context it is that. And I have to say, my brain weirdly understood all of it. Okay, I was like, oh yeah, he's thinking that, he's feeling that, okay, they're talking to each other. I don't know why it works, but my brain was like, oh yeah, because she, I think, talked about how this kind of writing style lends to the kind of anxiety and how you don't have a break in between it and you don't have the full context, and you always feel like you're in their mind while you're reading this. And I have to say, I do think that is very effective, because I'm very much a character person, and I think with that, you really do feel like their anxiety, their depression, and kind of how they view themselves is very well done. But I will say, if that feels like it's going to throw you off, don't read it. Now, I also will say the UK cover is kind of the one that I wanted. Now, this is still a really cool cover, but the UK one with like the blue little square in it, I don't know why, but that just reminds me of like an old movie poster, and I really wanted that. But I'm American, if you can tell by my accent. That's a stupid joke. My first ever one, I don't know if I'll pick up her other ones, because this is, I believe it's contemporary. I don't know, I don't read contemporary, but I will say this was very good, even though I was stepping out of my comfort zone and wasn't very sure about it. I liked it. Okay, so Carrie can read. I do have some issues with your book opinions, but you did hit with this one, okay? Where do I put this? Oh no, my Leaning Tower. The next book that I got, this is the author of Ace of Spades, and she also wrote Where Sleeping Girls Lie. This is a thriller mystery that also has queer representation with the main character. Also, so does Ace of Spades as well. But this also, just like the cover, I know I'm in bad lighting, but like, it's so stunning. It's very stunning. So basically, we're following this girl who is going to this boarding school, and the girl who shows her around and kind of gives her the whole rundown of all of the school, she has a best friend that our main character also meets, and then they also share a room as well, and then she goes missing, and the best friend kind of goes to our main character and is like, hey, like, you share a room with her, like, can you help me? And so they form a friendship, and then also there's this whole mystery of like, what happened to her, what's happening at this school, why is nobody really caring, or like, also there's like weird excuses, and then you find out that those are lies. It's a lot. But I will say, this deals with a very heavy topic, which is also sexual assault, and it is very fraternity feeling with the men and stuff. So I would say, please look up the trigger warnings for this. Please look up all trigger warnings for like majority of these books, okay? But this is it's really good. She's very good with her characters. She's very good with kind of the relationships, and also the mysteries are very well done. I will say I liked this one more than Ace of Spades, and my little brain loves to solve a mystery along with the characters. But yeah, if you like, I'm trying to think, if you like what's that series called? It's the one where they're in like a boarding school. If you like boarding school settings, if you like queer romances, if you like a very like complex thriller, I would say that this is absolutely for you. It also, stunning cover. I don't know what the paperback cover is. I don't even know if the paperback cover is even out yet. But anyways, very good. And then, also talking about staying out of my comfort zone, I got the 2 books in the Beartown trilogy. Now, did I get these first 2 books and then Mr. Frederick Bachman decided, hey, I'm going to put these on Kindle Unlimited? Yes, I did. But the last book is over 600 pages, and I have not read it yet, even though I probably should. So, the first book deals with sexual assault, and it is following this town where hockey is their kind of main thing. It brings in jobs, sponsors, and it's just very important to them. And you have the GM who has a daughter who goes to this party, and it is found out that the one of the best players on the hockey team sexually assaulted her. And it kind of goes into this whole thing of the sports, like how they treat young men who've done that, and how the town treats the daughter when she comes out and tells all of these things. And it is very hard-hitting and a very heavy subject. and it deals a lot in a very real way. So it's very heavy, and I've said that already, but yeah. And then the second book, we still carry on with like everything that happened in the first book, and we're kind of dealing with the more of the aftermath of what happens at the end of this book in this one. But this one more follows Benji, who is gay on the hockey team, and within sports how that kind of isn't accepted, and kind of him going on this journey of trying to figure himself out, and also dealing with the kind of aftermath of the town finding out. And it's just very well done. Also, Fredrik Backman is Swedish, so this is translated into English, but I don't know if I should get the third book in a physical format when it is on Kindle Unlimited. For all I could know, it could be taken off there. Yeah, I think that this is a very well done world. I think that Fredrik Backman knows how to deal with it. His characters are very strong, and I feel like he doesn't sugarcoat a lot of things within this, and kind of shows the harsh reality of what it would be like. And I think that these are very good. These are very emotional and gut-wrenching books. Can you tell a theme? Apparently I like reading painful books. This is The Beartown. I have not read the third book, like I've said already, but I have the first two books in the, I think, newer covers, which I like better than the older ones. Sue me. But anyways. Oh no. Now, we're going to get into the books that I got from Barnes & Noble for my birthday. Okay, how should I do this? Should I do the ones that I've read already and then do the ones that I haven't? Or should I just group authors together? So, we're going to start off with Bunny by Mona Awad, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. This is a very, complex thriller. I think it's more a psychological thriller, at least, but it is following this girl who gets kind of invited to this weird college fraternity of females who read their creative writing stories together, and they call each other Bunny, and they're basically all bleach blonde, all in pastels. If you imagine a southern fraternity, that's basically what they look like. And she kind of gets sucked into it, and there's kind of this whole unraveling of her world, and then also the whole crazy thing that this fraternity is doing, and it's very much cult-like. I will say that this doesn't end in a way where it's very clear fully what happened. It is kind of oh hey, this here's the information for that, but I kind of had to talk to my friend who adores this book and kind of sit there and talk to her about it, which I think is very good for certain books, and I do appreciate that sometimes. I think with this one I did as well, because I kind of liked where you could just sit and either come up with your own ending or try to draw conclusions, or you could have had an actual conversation on it, and I think a lot of thrillers can benefit from doing that. Now, like I said, I do like solving the mystery and being very much a part of it, but with this, it kind of is just, there's so much craziness within it that it's not necessarily, you're not going to sit there and be oh yeah, I completely understand what's happening. But if you're looking for a wild time, read this, okay? My friend, I can understand why she adores it. But yeah, I don't know, very fun, very cool. I also really like the cover of it. Also, if you don't like animal death, don't read this, okay? Anyways, please don't fall. The next book that I read is The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is a continuation sequel to the Darker Threads of Magic trilogy. I don't know how many books are coming out in this, because anyways, I don't think that this is just a standalone book, especially with the way that it ended. I'm very curious what's gonna happen, but I did adore a lot of the characters within the original trilogy. Now we are introduced to 3 new characters within this, but later, it's maybe 100 pages in, you go back to the original kind of characters from the original trilogy. So you have Delilah, you have Kel, you have... I've forgotten their names, even though they're like my favorite, but it is a very interesting magical world because there's 3 or 4 Londons and they're kind of stacked, and only certain people have magic, and certain people who have magical abilities, they have mismatched eyes, can travel between these worlds. And it's really cool. This one I feel like is a lot more political heavy than the first trilogy was, and I don't know, the villain in this, I kind of said in my video where I was reading this, just kind of feels very stupid to me, but I think that's just kind of setting up for more of like craziness that's going to happen within this, but who knows at this point, who knows. So the next book that I read was Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I love this. Okay, yes, this is also a book by Brandon Sanderson. This is, I think, was this a secret project? I don't know if it was, but we are following this 2 people who, one is Yumi and one is Painter, and Yumi basically is in this very kind of, she's this, not necessarily like saint, but she's supposed to be like this very religious and like treated incredibly well because she is able to draw spirits up from the ground from artfully and mathematically stacking rocks that draws spirits out of the ground. And in her world, you have, the ground is so hot that they have to wear really thick shoes, and if you poured water on it, it would boil instantly. So you have that kind of world where it's necessary for these spirits to be turned into these things, but they do it and they go willingly to do it. And then you follow Painter, who is in this world where there's this shroud around the city, and there's these hewn lights that are bright pink and cyan, and basically from this shroud comes these monsters, and they have to come out enough times to become stable to actually harm people. And basically what the painters do is they will see them and they will try to paint an object that is reminiscent or captures the being. And we kind of have this weird body mix where our painter is trying to like tell people, oh, there's this stable nightmare, but they don't believe him because he's only drawing bamboo, which is very weird for a painter because typically you're not supposed to just keep for one painting, and it also makes it look like you're trying to seem like you did more work, but you're maybe just lollygagging, or you're not actually seeing things if you're just doing like the same painting, because that shouldn't be embodying all these other essence. And then in Yumi's world, she has to stack these rocks, and she's very practiced at it to basically help all of her people. And so what happens is that Painter wakes up and is in Yumi's body, and everybody sees him as Yumi, and Yumi is like a ghost next to him. And then when they wake up in his world, Yumi is Yumi in his world, and everybody sees her, but Painter is a ghost in his world, and that brings a lot of complications and very interesting things because their cultures are very different from each other, and it kind of unravels from there, trying to find a mystery. Now, I will say this definitely has a lot of references to the Cosmere, which is the kind of entire world that Brandon Sanderson's books take up, because there are a lot more references in this that if you haven't read those, you'll miss. But I will say you can read this without reading the other books. There's just some references that you won't understand within it, and if that bothers you at all, then I would suggest, I think I'm not necessarily the best for reading order because I read Mistborn, and then I read Skyward, Starsight, and then I started the Stormlight Archives, so I'm not the best at that. But this also, I think, has a lot of references to the Stormlight Archives, and then also some Mistborn, and there's probably some in here that I also missed because I haven't read every single one of his books. But this is very fun and very cute, the way that their relationship goes, and he's very good at writing very unique powers in worlds, and it's beautifully well done. This was almost my first 5-star of the year, but it wasn't, but it was very, very close. Put you there. Okay, everything's falling. So, the next two books that I got are also from Brandon Sanderson, so I'm trying to group together these. I have not read these yet, okay? The next 6 that I show you, I have not read, okay? And the first one that I got was Warbreaker, which has the cover that I don't really like, but this is also like in a paperback edition. I don't fully know what this is about. I forget if this is the one where she can control the like light and stuff within it. She finds both the city and the marriage are not at all what she expected. Her only ally is Lightsong, a god who is skeptical of his own divinity, who fears that a war with Idris is inevitable. I believe this is the one where she can... A standalone novel of the Cosmere universe shared by the Stormlight Archives and the Mistborn Saga. So apparently I've done really good by reading both of those. But I know that this is one of his older books. And I forget... I don't know. I think the Empress Soul might be the one where she controls light, but... Yeah. He has very complex, like, magical powers and also political systems within these. Not complex in a way that's hard to understand, but it's very, like, unique, and so it's very hard to explain. Even I don't fully know what this book is, but we're gonna put you there. And then I got Elantris, which has an actually really cool cover, which I'm very sorry because it is in very low lighting, but... This I do not know much about, although it is very funny because I got this one and I was like, this is probably like one of his, at least at the time, was like one of his least talked about books that I had seen. And then my phone's listening to me, so of course Pinterest was like, here's fan art of Elantris, and I was like, that looks really cool. But I don't even know what this one is about. Elantris delightfully proves that a great complete fantasy story can be told in a single volume of action, intrigue, wonder, and countless surprises. Elantris was the city of gods. What power could have cursed it? Oh, interesting. So I'm guessing this is a political mystery then. I don't know. I haven't read it yet, but I want to, okay? So, the next 2 authors, I'm only gonna barely mention these books, and that is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, which has the red sprayed edges and is the exclusive edition. And then I also got the second book it's the sequel to Ninth House, which is Hellbent. I do really like this cover, but it is tinier than my other one, so I have mismatched copies of them. So the next books are, I realized that I was stupid because okay, so you want to know a flex? I got a Susan Collins release date on my birthday. How many of you can say that? So the book, not this book, but the Sunrise on the Reaping, it came out on my birthday. But I went to Barnes & Noble on the 15th, and it was not out yet. Now, I kind of do want to do a whole reread of the original Hunger Games trilogy, read this, and then Sunrise on the Reaping, because I have also not seen the movie for the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Susan Collins. So this book is following, I believe, first winner of... for not the first Hunger Games, but she's the first winner of District 12, and she is Lucy Gray. That's right. And then this also is following Cornelius Snow, which is he's like basically the worst person ever in this book, and so we're following him when he's a lot younger with Lucy Gray, and it also kind of shows the earlier Hunger Games and what's happening with them, how it was viewed back then, possibly more insight into why it was happening and all of this. But I kind of do want to wait until I get Sunrise on the Reaping and do like a whole read of basically everything that Susan Collins has written. For the next book, even though it has a bookmark in it, I have not read. And this is the second book in the Bloodsworn. I believe it's a trilogy. I think that's where it ends, and this is by John Gwynne, and the second book is The Hunger of the Gods. This is very much a high fantasy, like, if you're looking for something that gives the essence of, like, back in the day fantasy, this is very much it. Yes, I do need to read this as well, but this also has a really cool cover. All of these ones have really cool covers. I don't know who does his cover art for these, but these are really, really cool. They're okay. So, these next books, I've read almost all of them. Okay, I am halfway, actually more than halfway through the third book, and that is, let's see if I can even hold this. The Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare. And as you can tell from my bookmark, I'm currently reading the last book, which is Chain of Thorns. So we have the Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns. This is the Last Hour trilogy, which is following basically 20 years, I believe, after the Infernal Devices trilogy, and it is following Will and Tessa's kids, and then also the friend group that they have. There's a lot of characters. Okay, so you have the Merry Thieves, who are made up of Thomas, Christopher, Matthew, James, and then you have James's sister, who is Lucy, and then you have Lucy's best friend, and then she also has a crush on James, Cordelia, who's coming with her brother Alistar after her father was arrested. And you have other characters that join onto this, and you have Anna and Adriana, and so there's a lot of characters. Okay, this last book is 768 pages, or at least the edition that I have. Look at those covers. They also, the spines line up on these, which is really cool, which also the Infernal Devices does as well. So that's very cool. But I'm more than halfway through this third book, and I will say I'm enjoying my time. Okay, now the third book, and the way that this second book ended, is very frustrating. Okay, and this does have a lot of miscommunication in it, and I feel like this is very relationship heavy. It very much focuses on the relationship aspect a lot more in these, because I think the Infernal Devices and all of Cassandra Clare's books do that, but it's been a minute, so I I don't know, but man, does Cassandra Clare love certain tropes, and it makes me infuriated sometimes. So and I will say, read the Infernal Devices before you read these, okay? Especially because the Infernal Devices, and I know this might be a controversial opinion, the Infernal Devices are better than these, okay? The Infernal Devices are they should be hung in a museum. They are beautiful works of art, and they are absolutely incredible, okay? But anyways, I'm not going to try to stack those back there. Anyways, I don't even know how many books that was. It was probably a lot. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this chaotic, very low lit, very not as good quality video, and my phone is currently on 10%, which is really great. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Tell me if you've read any of these books, what you thought about them, and what book you think I should pick up next out of the ones that I haven't read from my from Barnes & Noble. Make sure you like and subscribe, and bye.